Today's topic is very important, overcoming imposter syndrome. Now, I've been doing a couple of sessions in the last couple of weeks about the imposter syndrome and how does that affect us pretty badly. So I decided to bring one of my good friend, and I've known Jillian something like 6, 7 years now. And so Jillian is a speaker. She can talk about her past history, that how did she overcome the imposter syndrome and where she come from and everything. So let me help me welcome Jillian to my talk show. Hello, Jillian. How are you?
I'm good, Raza. It's great to be on the show. Thank you for inviting me. I always make a conscious effort to try to attend everything wherever I'm invited. So I'm I'm delighted to be here. We can't hear you.
My bad.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're back.
Um, so it is an important subject, which is overcoming the imposter syndrome. Now, let me ask you a couple of questions, and obviously, we all go through the imposter syndrome. So, you know, tell us about your short journey. Well, I know you have written some fabulous books and things like that about that. So I can't really take away that journey time, but tell us about yourself, who you are, and where you come from, and what are the challenges you faced, and when you had a qualification, what doubt did they creep in mind, and what limiting belief were you holding about yourself?
Well, that's three questions in one, but I'll try my best to answer them. Um, who am I? I'm Jillian, and I was born in the city of Calcutta. I was born in abject poverty. We lost four siblings to malnutrition and poverty, one after the other. When I was a little girl, we were shunted from one place to the other. And sometimes people kept us, sometimes they asked us to move on. My dad, uh, my dad's parents were British, my mom's parents were British. My dad and my mom were actually born in India at the time of the East India Company. And unfortunately, after India got her independence, many British families left the country and chose to come back to Britain, my dad's sister being one of them with all her kids. But hundreds of families decided that they want to stay in India. They loved India, and that's where they wanted to remain. But unfortunately, after independence, things took a turn for the worse, and a lot of British families have suffered um, because of that. However, to cut a long story short, and to be brief with this, coming back to us, my parents had a number of children, and we were reduced. My little sister and myself, at one point, our elder siblings were put to boarding school, and my sister and myself, were living under a flight of stairs, which I've put pictures in my book, A Voice Out of Poverty. And we stayed under those flight of stairs for a pretty long time, and we we began to get very ill. So my mother asked one of her friends to look after us, to teach us, to help us, and she was delighted. She said, "Yes, of course, Margaret." My mom's name was Margaret. "I'll be delighted to look after them." She fell in love with my little sister Vanessa because she's very fair, she's very blonde, and she was a little doll. She still is. And unfortunately, I wasn't. So she took a dislike to me, an instant dislike to me. And we can't tell why people take dislikes to other people, but that is how it was.
Mm.
And she felt that one eye of mine was horizontal, one eye was vertical. I would never be anything. I would never be anyone. I was capable of nothing. And so every day, Vanessa was a very naughty girl. She used to drop water on the floor. She used to write her ABC wrong, and I always took the blame because I didn't want to get my little sister into trouble. But that led to catastrophic abuse, I would put it, because
Wow.
she used to take me every day and take me down to this Indian style toilet and put me in there, close the door, and it was a little toilet about 3 by 4 or 2 by 4 feet or whatever. And she would put me in there and close the door, put off the light. And before she would put me in there, she would show me that there were giant cockroaches in that toilet. And I would have to stand there with my little sister standing outside the door saying, "Julu, don't move, stay still, they won't fly." But that terrorized me and traumatized me to such an extent that I lost my voice. I lost everything I I didn't know who I was for a very, very long time. And I do not know to this day whether it is the abject poverty of living under a flight of stairs or living in a slum where we lived in a slum where probably, I don't know, 3,000 people shared 3 toilets. It was a 6 by 8 room, and we were reduced to nothing, or whether it was what this lady did to me. I do not know what it was, but it definitely put this imposter syndrome in me to such an extent where I fell down right up to the age of 14, up to the age of 16, up to the age of 17. And my sisters would just kill themselves laughing, like, oh my gosh, she's fallen again, and she's fallen again, and she's fallen again. And I suffered with a nervous disposition. I could never answer a question in school. I could never be at the front of a church. I could never do anything. But you come to terms with your life, Raz, at some point, and you understand what is holding you back.
True.
And no one else can fight it except you. You've got to be the one to take control of your life and fight it. And all that time, it's exactly what an imposter syndrome does. You feel like you're a fake. You feel that if you go out there, people will laugh at you, they will ridicule you. You are fearful. And that's how I grew up. That's how I grew up, believing that I was nothing and that I could be nothing. And I could do a job, but as long as I was behind closed doors, that would be okay. But putting myself out and into the public domain, never. I could never have dreamed of it.
Interesting. So your upbringing did give you this limiting belief that, because you were talking about your eyes, one is on the north, one is south, right? Does that give you a limiting belief in terms of that you're not good enough, and you were, as your stepmother or your aunt, so-called, talks about that you're not good enough? Because I remember my teacher said that you're not good enough, you will never amount to anything. These are the same words which rings the bell all the time, right? But now when you've grown up, you got into the banking sector, right? How did that impact you? Because obviously that's a huge impact, working in the environment, and then you're working in the male dominated environment. How did that impact you?
Well, at first, when I got the job, there are 2 things that can happen. So first, when you get the job, you get the job out of sheer compulsion, because I had 2 little ones to bring up. I had my dad and my mom to take care of. My mom was suffering with cancer. My dad was very aged. And I had a little brother and a little sister who I had to support and see them right through their schooling. So I had a lot of responsibility at a very young and tender age. Yes, I had helped my mom with bringing them up when I was 8 and 9 years old. But once you are a big girl and you get into the working sector, you have to forget about your own life and you have to look after them. When you have to do that, compulsion is the name of the game. You do what it takes to earn that money and pay those bills and bring those kids up and look after your parents. But in my case, I think it was twofold. One was compulsion, and one was I found my confidence, because I could get a job out of 250 girls I interviewed for a job at Bank of America, and I was the one selected. So I had the confidence to get that job, but I didn't have the confidence to be who I really and truly wanted to be. I wanted to be able to help hundreds of people. I wanted to help people who were sick and dying and destitute and alone, and men, women, and children, which is what I'm doing today. But that confidence, it wasn't enough confidence for me to do what I really and truly wanted to do. And so I had to challenge those limiting beliefs. I had to challenge those negative thoughts with rational evidence, something that we call evidence-based thinking. You have to challenge yourself. Are these thoughts right? Does this feel right? Is it true about you? Is this what you want to continue to do? Are you ready to step out of this domain? Are you ready to fight for what you believe in? You're never going to do this. I was at RBS and I could have stayed at RBS till I was a ripe old lady and they all loved me across 3 floors of banking. But you soon realize that you're capable of much more and you want to do much more. But what is stopping you? That is the key. This imposter syndrome is what stops you. And you have to question your past. Where does it come from? What is holding you back? Who has done what to you, or what are you afraid about? What are you afraid? What is making you anxious? What is making you thoughtful? You have to question these beliefs, and you have to face them head on. That's what I believe.
So, I mean, when you were in that environment, did you meet unrealistic, standards of perfection in your personal and professional life? Were there unrealistic things was being forced onto you when you joined that banking environment, and then you suddenly feel that, am I good enough for this?
Oh, yeah, every day. When I walked on, I even say now in all my speeches, and I always get a laugh everywhere I go to banks, because I always say that when I walked onto the banking floor, I was a little slum girl walking onto this amazing banking floor with everyone in black suits and superbly dressed, and, Armani suits, and, probably, Prada bags and everything. And then you walk on and you think, wow, I'm in a total different world. But apart from all of that materialism, I wanted to be who they were. I wanted to know what they knew. I wanted to be like them. I wanted to be better than them. I knew I had a life, and I knew I was capable of a lot, and I knew I could do it, but there was something holding me back. It was like, to give you a metaphor, it was like a champagne bottle that had been kept, people say, look, I've kept this wine for 100 years, and that's why it's really good now. Come on, have a glass. And I felt like I was this champagne bottle kept down in it, in a dark dungeon where nobody touched me for I don't know how many years. And then suddenly, when I found that I'm suffering with this imposter syndrome, it was like somebody just opened that cork and I just came flowing out. And that's really how it feels when you find yourself.
So you feel like the little genie came out of the bottle, right?
Absolutely, without a shadow of doubt. Yes.
Okay. So, in that environment, when you accomplish something or when you've been promoted, did you downplay that accomplishment by saying, oh, it's just a fluke? Or is it, oh, I didn't do that. It's just that somebody else helped me achieving that. Did you downplay that accomplishment?
Not at all. In fact, I upplayed it. I
Oh,
would
really?
always
Wow.
upplay. Oh, yeah. So for me, I think it's very important, Raza, to understand the risks and rewards. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So when you look at the rewards, you think, okay, I've got this job, and now I'm going to be ABC, and I'm going to get promoted. So I got promoted up to being the head of charity and diversity. And then I got all of this responsibility, and everybody, it's all fine. But what were the risks? At every junction in your life, you have to look at the risks and rewards. So the risks to me were, I can stay in this job forever. I can get all these promotions. I can get this bonus in February. That's all good. But what are the risks of me not being somebody bigger, better, having 6 charities, writing books, traveling the world speaking as a speaker, helping hundreds of people? What there is the risks. If the risks outweigh those rewards, you've got to take action, and you've got to change your life, because we've got to remember we have only one life, just one life and one chance. And we all believe, like I said at the Bank of England speech, the sad thing is that we all believe that we are going to live forever. Someone else is dead, not me. Someone else has met with an accident. It's not me. It wasn't me. It's not going to be me, but it is going to be you one day. And you've got to take action while you can. And you've got to change your life while you can. And this is important, that self-talk, those affirmations, that what you tell yourself every day is crucial to our neurology. Because that's what forms patterns. That's what differentiates the mediocre from the successful, right?
100%. I mean, interestingly, I usually, whenever I coach, I usually ask, be a lady or be a man. When was the last time you stand in front of a mirror and said, I love you and I forgive you? Even the lady said, we have never said that because it's a bit too much for them as well. It's like, really, you stand in front of the mirror for the touch-ups and makeups and things like that. Men, I understand. But from the ladies' point of view, they struggle saying those words, because this is for positive affirmation in terms of uplifting them as well. But anyway, that was me when doing the coaching side of it. Now tell me, have you ever compared yourself? I know you were comparing yourself with those guys with the Armani suits and things like that, but
Yeah.
have you compared yourself with somebody else in the same league as you when you were in the banking world? I mean, I'm still not talking about the where you are right now. I mean, talking about that because that is the journey you had. So, did you compare yourself with somebody else, with a lady which is like high fly and then doing the things, but obviously struggling as well at the same time? um, and then the burnouts and things like that, because obviously we are human being, be a man or be a woman, we all have a burnout, we have stress, anxieties, frustration, all those things.
I think, Rasa, it's very important for us to understand the meaning of competition.
Mm,
Firstly, there is positive competition and there is negative competition. Remember
indeed.
that negative competition stems from a lack mentality. You will easily be able to identify these people who go at you on social media, who abuse you, who put you down, who hurt you, who try to, you know, ridicule you, whatever it is that all, as you told me before, all your people, they face. But we've got to understand that those people, there is some kind of lack in their lives, and that's why they go at others. So when you're asking me the question, I never ever had, I don't think I have a bone in my body to look at anybody and try to compete with them that I want to be you and I want, why are you getting that? Why have you
Mm,
got that promotion? I think I was loved across my entire banking 23-year banking career because I always raised people up. I always supported them. I was there for them. You could be the MD and you could be, the secretary, and everybody used to say, even after 10 o'clock at night, you can call Jillian. She'll always be there. And she'll always be there to find what you've left, or you've left something at work. I was always running around. My boss used to say, Jillian, we just need a little sofa by your desk and you can just start your coaching business right here, because whenever I come out, there's somebody always taking advice from you. So I was always like that, and I always looked at them like, I want to aspire to be like them. I want to know what they know. I used to
mm,
ask them for help.
yeah.
Please coach me, please help me. I walked into my boss at Bank of America, was CEO, and I said, please coach me. And he was like, no one's asked me that before, Jillian, and I have two little kids at home, and my wife works in Singapore, so I have to go home to help them with their homework. I said, I tell you what, I'll help them with the homework. You stay late and coach me. And he did that. And that's how I knew and I learned
Mm,
so much. I came to London, I did the same thing. I asked my MD, please coach me. I want you to be my mentor. And he did. So you can ask for help everywhere you go. But I don't think competing with somebody from a negative perspective ever gets anyone anywhere in life. I honestly and firmly believe.
100%. So when you start, from the banking to transitioning to the coaching world, did you hesitated at some points as, am I that good to be able to coach people, or am I not? And let's dip my toes into the water and see how it works out. Otherwise, I always have a banking job.
I think you have to be, truth be told, Raza, I think you always have to be aware of what you're getting into. So
Mm,
even with the banking world, you have to have the appropriate skills, with any job and any profession. And
mm,
same when I was getting into speaking and coaching, you have to be careful that you don't just roll out of bed someday and say, I'm a speaker. Because
mm.
very soon people will,
Found out,
you know
yeah,
what happens. People
yeah,
they find out, right? If you're not trained and you're not skilled,
correct.
right? So you first have to ask yourself, what is stopping me from getting out? And you have to first cure that side of you, that imposter syndrome, that in a way it's like an illness. You have to first deal with that.
Mm,
Because what's the point of getting a coaching degree, and what's the point of getting a speaker degree, and what's the point of being able to sing, and what's the point of being able to dance and to act when you don't have the confidence to get out there? So I think you first have to deal with the problem at hand. And then I think you have to deal and you have to strive. When I say strive for perfection, I don't mean you have to become the very best, but you have to watch out for this imposter syndrome, because you have to have some credibility when you get out there. You've got to have a degree. You've got to be able to you've got to be able to be coached, to be trained, to be mentored, to when you step out there, you have the confidence, that's okay. But can you deliver a structured speech? Can you sing in time with those notes?
Mm.
Are you a good dancer? Have you been trained? All of that credibility is very, very important. And I think if you get out there with the skills that you need, the appropriate skills, you suffer less with that imposter syndrome, because then I'm good enough. I was just on a panel discussion with these world champions of
Mm.
Toastmasters. And one of the questions we got asked is, when did you think, all four of you, I want you to answer me, Jeff asked, when did you really and truly believe that you were enough and you were ready as a public speaker? That's a very powerful question, Raz. Very powerful question.
Yes, yeah.
And you can answer that only half of the, if you want to deal with the imposter syndrome problem, half of the problem is getting comfortable with who you are, getting that credibility under your belt, getting those skills. Because people are going to make fun of you somewhatly, right? You know that, huh?
Of course, of
Look,
course.
look, if you try to sing, they'll say you're not Adele. Yeah. If you try to dance, you cannot dance like Strictly Come Dancing people, so don't try. Huh? If you write a book, somebody else wrote it for you. If you try to paint, oh, please don't go there. It's not worth it. No matter what you try to do in this life, people are there to put you down.
Correct.
You have to hedge those bets. And you've got to get so confident and so good with whatever skills you can get. Toastmasters is the greatest place to be for that, because they give you all the skills that you need. I'm talking obviously from a speaker perspective. But even with painting or singing or anything, get to places where people give you these skills for hardly any money. Get trained, get skilled before you get out there. That helps with this imposter syndrome.
Fantastic. Jillian, all my questions are finished. Now, let's share some of the tools and strategies which you have applied in your life to overcome those imposter syndrome. And then we will go via some audience as well, so we can ask the audience questions afterwards as well if they have questions. So share your tools and strategies, how you have overcome them.
Okay. I'll run very quickly through. I've written a few down and I'll run very quickly with it. So, like I said, challenge those negative thoughts and those negative beliefs with rational evidence, which we call evidence-based thinking. So ask yourself, does it feel right, what I'm doing?
Yep.
Am I in total control when I get up on a stage, or when I'm teaching as a teacher, or when I'm a doctor, or whatever I am? Is it true what people are saying about me, or is it true that I can be who I want to be? Remind yourself of your past achievements. Remind yourself of your past skills. Remind yourself of your past qualifications. And also never forget to remind yourself of the hardship that you have faced to get where you want to be. That is very important. I was listening to a great podcast. I listen to all these high-profile podcasts, and one of these CEOs said, we were thinking, if we asked a question to people, would you like to erase a part of your life? And another CEO came back and said, no, I wouldn't like to erase a part of my life, only because it's that part, that difficult part of my life, that has made me who I am today. So never forget that your hardship has made you who you are today. Always remember to measure the risks and rewards. That's very important. And if your rewards outweigh those risks, take the plunge. And as Verity, one of the world champions, she said, if you want something bad enough, you will find a way to deal with that fear. Always remember that self-talk. Get coached, because that is very important to help you on your way. Find someone who is really passionate and can help you on your way to success. And definitely check your credibility, check your skills, check that you have all of that before you try to get out there. Do not worry about how you look. And this again is coming from Lisa Marie, who is another great world champion. And she said, don't worry about how you look. Your nose could be running, and don't worry about wiping it. Your mascara could have, smudged, and you could have cried 1,000 tears before getting on stage. Don't worry how you look, because if your message is good, people will want to hear what you have to give to the world. And that is, to me, so powerful. Another tip is keep learning and always seek to get feedback every step of the way, just like Toastmasters do. You get feedback and you get feedback, and that's how you keep improving. And remember, don't try to win a competition, or don't try to be the bee's knees all at one go. Give yourself time. Small goals, small, realistic goals that you expect from yourself, taking everything else into consideration that is part of your life, the amount that we all have on in our lives. Always remember how much you have on. And lastly, please remember to be authentic. Always be yourself. Show your vulnerability, show your poverty, show your hardship. And if you think at some point that, you know what, I'm not good enough, and I'm ugly, and I'm this or I'm that, and people won't listen to me, talk about that. Sing about that. Paint about that. Dance to that tune, and people will love you. But always remember, and I say this because I learned this, that there's always somebody out there who needs what you have. Wayne Dyer put it in the best way possible when he said, never die with your music still in you. Always share and impart that music, and that music means the message that you have to give to the world, whether that is through song or dance or painting or a book or anything. Share that with the world. I cannot tell you how many hundreds of lives I've changed all over the world, how many bankers' lives I've changed, how many students' lives I've changed. I mean, it's just been amazing. If you had asked me, Jillian, would you have been capable of doing this many years ago? I would have had to answer, absolutely not. Who wants to listen to me? Who will ever want to listen to me? But that's not true. There is someone out there who needs you. Never forget that. That's where I'd like to leave that, Raza.
Jillian, very strong message indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on my show. But I mean, I've got some audience anyway. I've got Elizabeth, Carolina, Mary, and Ray Sleep. Guys, do you have questions for Jillian while we have her undivided attention at the moment? You can always unmute yourself and ask questions, or you can put it in the chat. Anybody?
I have a question, Raza, that came to me actually just before the show on WhatsApp.
Okay.
So if you don't mind, can I share that?
Sure. Please go ahead.
Right. So the question is, Jillian, hi, this is Tina. How do I get past social media and the people who don't let me move forward? You answer that first, Raza.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's first of all that I will start with my own self-awareness, that who really I am, right? Because the problem is that a lot of people go into this frenzy of, we've got this emotional side of it. And then when people start criticizing other people, we become overburdened, we felt angry, frustrated, anxiety, and then we pretty much relying on other people for our happiness. Our happiness starts from us rather than anybody else. So for her, I mean, she is dependent on other people, and she's probably waiting for the people to praise her to move her forward. Well, I mean, I'm not looking for praise from anybody. For me, because I'm fully self-aware and I am content, because I can stand in front of the mirror and I can say, I love you and forgive you. If she can do that, that's fantastic, because that will allow her to move forward. But if she can't, that means there is something wrong because she has got this limiting belief. She's still going through the imposter syndrome and she's got these emotional reactions. And that's the problem which she's facing right now. But first of all, the journey she has to take is to become she really is. And what are the limiting beliefs she is holding about herself? If she can overcome that, that will be fantastic. And that's the journey she has to go through.
Absolutely. I agree, Raza. And I'll add, by the way, Tina is my little coaching student, just so that you know. She's only 18. But I'll send this recording to her as well. But I would like to answer, I was like her many years ago. And I remember when I put my first book out on social media, I got a ton of abuse.
Nice.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. I got a ton of abuse from very many people, and people all whom I knew, not people I didn't. But I went for a training and I asked the same question. How do I overcome this abuse of these trolls on social media? And you know what he did with us in the classroom? He said to us, take out your phones, and every single person you think that is being negative to you, I want you to delete their names, delete their emails, and block them from every single one of the social media platforms. You know, Raza, he gave us 2 hours to do that because we all had to look at different platforms. And it was such a champion exercise. We deleted everyone, and there was laughter and there was such cheer in the room. And then he said, okay, now I'm going to take each of you and I'm going to set up a post for each of you. And we're going to talk about something oblivious. Apple stickers. Just imagine Apple stickers. Apple stickers. And he gave everyone something. Completely ridiculous subjects, okay? And he put the post up for all of us and he said, now, I'm going to leave this, and at the end of our program, which is tomorrow evening, we're going to check these posts and we're going to see how many people really love it. Yeah. And we checked it, we left it, and the next day we checked it. You would not believe the amount of people who loved what we were saying. There are people who love pretty much everything in this world, even Apple stickers. So we were delighted. So he said, you know what? If 20 people don't like you, 320 people love you. Block them all. Get away from all the negativity. And I learned that lesson. So the minute you find somebody who's trying to put you down, block them. And I give you this word from Verity, who's again a champion, a world champion. And she said, those who love you, they will want you to succeed.
Correct.
And you can tell that those who don't love you, they will not want you to succeed, and they will keep working towards putting you down. But the question you have to ask yourself, why are they putting you down? They are putting you down simply because they are suffering with the imposter syndrome that
Correct.
they can't overcome. If you look at it like that, it's brilliant. It is. They can't overcome it. So they don't want you to overcome it. And sadly, some of these people are facing something called impending doom. Doom is like when you're doomed to life. You've lived more than what you're going to live. So, your lifespan is now cut short. And you're thinking, I want to do that, no more time. I want to do that, no more time. You do have the time. You do have the capability, but you don't have the ability to overcome that imposter syndrome. Somebody else has, and you don't like it.
100%. I mean, there is a saying is that the busy people get things done, free people don't have time. I'm sure you've come across. And that's why people are, I've come across that as well, because what I'm capable of, because in my early years in technology, I wasn't willing to settle down for one thing. And then obviously people were upset because I was always striving to be a project manager, moving forward, making more money. That's what it was, because and still I am. But it's just some people don't like it. And some people are still trying to find out what I really do for living, and they're always looking for something to either criticize me or do
Of
something,
course.
which is that's the
Yes.
nature of human being, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Once you learn the emotional intelligence side of it and overcome the limiting belief in imposter syndrome, you will never have to go through those things because you will
No,
take that challenge, and then that should be a springboard for you to move forward as well.
I absolutely believe that. And the most exciting thing that comes out of it is that not only do you find yourself, and like there is a saying that you lose so many people. When you are growing and when you are developing, you possibly will lose so many people, even your near and dear ones. But guess what happens in the bargain? You find yourself. You
100%.
find yourself. And when that happens, you don't only find yourself, but then you start helping others to find themselves.
Indeed.
And that is the great, Raza, my favorite quote from the club is, the purpose of life. You know how I say that quote, right? The meaning of life is to find your gift, but the purpose of life is to learn how to give it away. And when you learn how to give it away,
It is.
that is when you feel completely fulfilled.
100%.
Raza and Jillian, excellent session. Thank you very much. I have a question for you. I have several questions. I'll just ask one. Jillian, could you say a few words about the role of Toastmasters in helping you to deal with imposter syndrome, if at all?
Elizabeth, I just put out the recording from my panel discussion with the world champions. And they asked me the same question.
They
Jillian,
didn't, did they?
Yes. The same question, Jillian, can you tell us how you overcame imposter syndrome? And I said, well, from Toastmasters, how I overcame it was I started learning bit by bit, meeting by meeting, speech by speech, each evaluation by evaluation, and slowly but surely. And even though I was a good speaker and I had learned everything, I'd learned the structures, learned everything. It was only the time when I was called to deliver that TEDx speech in Stormont, and there was this magnificent building on the hill, and you can watch the video, Elizabeth, and Jeff is like biting his nails like that when I'm telling the story, and he said, and then I said, when I saw this magnificent building up on the hill, and I saw then they had a speakers dinner, and I said to Bob, I'm going to run away from here. I can just call in sick or say there's a family emergency or something. And Bob said, no, Jillian, you got to stay, because this is when you're going to overcome this fear. I know you've done it at the club, and I know you've done it outside, but this is the biggest audience. And there must have been I think I've put out a picture on Facebook last week where there was close to 3,000 to 4,000 people in that auditorium. And then they had this counter with the people online. I was terrified, Elizabeth. I was wet. I was soggy. I was crying. I was not myself. I didn't want to go on stage, and I couldn't do it. But Toastmasters was there every step of the way, guiding me, coaching me, helping me. And I was the second last speaker, and the speaker before me just made the audience laugh and laugh and laugh. And I thought, now they're going to listen to boring old me. But I got on stage and I thought, no, I'm going to deliver the speech. Bob wants me to do it, and I'm going to deliver it. And I delivered it, and you can listen to it. And it's called Never Give Up and Other Complete Rubbish. And it was just so successful that the minute I got on the plane from Ireland and I came back to London, and I had 50,000 views on the speech. And I looked at the guy before me who had spoken, and he had 3 views. And I thought, oh my God, I've done something right. I've done something correct. And I thought, this is just great. And now I think it's above 350,000 views or something like that. So that is the power of Toastmasters. That's what Toastmasters can do for you, of course, if you're going into public speaking.
I mean, from Elizabeth, to answer your question from my point of view, I was good in tech, but when it comes to the project and the interview, I was absolutely terrified. The person on the other side of the desk, I was terrified of him. So I joined the Toastmaster in Bristol first time, right? And I started learning and everything. And then when I moved back here in Hertfordshire, I joined the Toastmaster 7-8 years ago. It was 2014, 2015. But I remember, as I was developing, I was feeling imposter most of the time, but I joined the Cambridge University as a Cambridge system as a technology project manager. And in
Mm.
there on the Tuesday afternoon, they have got this session, which is lunch and learn.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
and then in that lunch and learn, they said, like, I said, I'm going to talk about the emotional intelligence. And was for me was a bit fearful because what happened was the week before that there was another gentleman who was talked about product management, which is the agile product management, and the only 15 people turned up, and I'm thinking, did I put myself right in there, or did I? What do I do now? I'm panicking. Anyway, so come on Tuesday, for me was okay. I'm driving from here to Cambridge, and I'm practicing my speech, and there's like a presentation as well, and then you can see I'm still swinging my hand. I've still got that video because obviously I'm still terrified when I'm delivering. Anyway, come on Tuesday at 1 o'clock, I joined, and there's like 10, I thought only 10 people will turn up, and only 5 people turn up. Next thing you know, the hall was full, and the butterflies in my stomach was all over the place. So I had to overcome those butterflies. Says I've been practicing it. I've been talking in the Toastmaster. I can do this. This is how. So that's how first time I overcome my imposter syndrome, because I was feeling I shouldn't be here. Actually, just like Jillian, I shouldn't be doing this. I shouldn't be doing that. It's like all those limiting beliefs kicks in. So yeah, so it's been a fantastic journey for me. I mean, that's one of the reason I come back to Toastmasters to get to the next level, because I think I can deliver the messages I have and things like that, which I want to pass it on. And this talk show is part of that journey as well.
Mm. Thank
Salim,
you.
Salim, you have a question? And then I'll come back to you, Elizabeth.
Hey Raza, hey Jillian. Fantastic. And I think Elizabeth also just kind of stole a little bit of my question as well. I was going to ask about that pivotal moment. I think it was going to be that you had that changed it for you in terms of imposter syndrome. But another question I had is strategies. I think you again touched on it. I may have missed part of it, but a key strategy from, they always say things that change a threat to an opportunity. And I think that's a similar thing with imposter syndrome. It's you're part of being uncomfortable and using that uncomfort to grow. So you're in a difficult situation like you were, I suppose, with your TEDx or going for this corporate job, moving from the slums. What are the strategies or the best strategies that you've learned then in that case to confront that that threat or that thought, that negative, and change it to a positive mindset to go out there? If you can, that would be quite useful just to perhaps reconfirm it again, because I'm sure you would have touched on it already.
No problem. I think for me that if I were to sum up all the points that I gave you all earlier, if I were to sum that up in 3 points, I would sum it up by saying the first thing is you have to ask yourself, how much do you desire what you want? Right? So the risk and the reward. I think it's very important to understand that. Because if you desire something, even the world champion has just said it, that if you desire something really, really bad and you really want something, trust me, you will find a way to overcome that fear. But in order to overcome that fear, that brings me to point number 2, you have got to confront, as we say, we got to confront our demons. So what is it? And this is where coaching will help, or mentoring will help, because what is it that's holding you back right now? Like I said earlier, was it for me the abject poverty of growing up my entire childhood? Was it losing 4 siblings? Was it living under a flight of stairs? Was it being locked up in that torture chamber of joint cockroaches? At some point, I didn't know. But now I do know, because I went through that whole coaching structure, and it was, they kind of coach you to get all of that fast for you to talk about it, for you to speak about it. And today, I have no problem in speaking about it. I have no issues. Many people think, how did she do it? Why does she talk about all that? But where there's no sin, there's no shame. And once you are confident with who you are and what you want to talk about and your desire to help people clearly outweighs anything else in your life, it's magic. You just will overcome that. So I think one is risk and rewards. The second is to elicit what's actually going on inside you. And the third one I would leave you with is definitely what's your credibility, because that can easily be, kind of people understand online, especially high profile speakers, corporates, where you're going to speak. They can easily identify whether you've been trained or not, or whether you're delivering a structured speech or not. And that's exactly what happened at TED. I just didn't stand up there saying something and making the audience laugh or whatever. I prepared that speech. That speech was done by me, I don't know how many times. I was ready with it. I had got my speaking qualification, I got my coaching qualification, I got my NLP qualification. So there's so many less fingers pointed at you, if you know what I mean. So those are the three things I'd leave you with.
That's great. Thank you.
Cool. Elizabeth, do you have any more questions? Because another few minutes, we're gonna wrap up. I'd love to keep Jillian for a long period of time, but it's not possible.
I think with imposter syndrome, they say that in the workplace, particularly women suffer from this more than men. Like men can sort of put on a sort of brave or arrogant face more than women. And Jillian, did you find that distinction that women have to work harder, or is it just everybody who sometimes go through this imposter syndrome?
I think everybody. In fact, even men.
They do.
There's a lot of times when I was on the banking floor and we would be, in a meeting room, and you would have mistakes and you would have all of this, both sides of the fence. But sometimes, so for example, I'll give you an example. You would have a girl who very, very much wants to overcome this imposter syndrome, and she thinks, well, I'm the most confident and I've just joined and I am a VP and I can speak up. And sometimes you'll ask her, don't speak up when an MD is wrong, don't correct him. But she'll speak up and she'll say, no, I'm sorry, you've missed that number. But there is a time and place for everything, and you have to know that. So overconfidence is also not good. And sometimes you'll find men who will be at a meeting, but they won't say a word. And actually, they are the cleverest in the room. They're the brainiest. They have the best ideas. If you meet with them outside a meeting room, oh my gosh, it's amazing what they come out with. But in a room full of people, they've lost their voices and they just will not speak up. They clamp up. And that is what you have to elicit. You have to get into what is holding them back. But no, Elizabeth, I've seen it both sides of the fence, both sides.
Is affected both, and especially in the technology, where I come from, is huge.
Yeah, of course.
Because majority of the people are they are more of introvert than the extrovert, because in the technology especially, and they love to be extrovert, but they don't have an opportunity of developing that skill. So
yeah, I think Americans are very good at confidence that way. Americans are better than Brits. Really.
Oh, of course.
I was on this world championship, and you can listen to the American guy there. He says, everybody calls me Mr. Confidence, and everybody thinks I've got, the whole world's confidence in me. And they are very confident people. And I've learned a lot from Americans too. I worked for American Bank for a lot of the time, but you can pick up a lot of skills from them also. But I think it's a little different with the imposter syndrome. And overcoming this imposter syndrome actually can change your life. It's like darkness and light. It's chalk and cheese. It's truly amazing.
100%. Jillian, thank you for coming. Thank you, Elizabeth, and thank you, Vaisali, for joining me.